What's up, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. And you know that Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith with my man, 𝗚𝗏𝗄𝐶 Johnson, CHSN Bulls Insider.
What's
𝗚𝗏𝗄𝐶.
up, Cam?
What's up, man? We're not remote. We're in the great podcast studio that we have at CHSN. So we don't have to have this episode and talk to each other via laptops in our remote areas.
Fancy toys in the podcast studio where it's all happening. We're not sick of each other yet. A lot of pregame show appearances, podcasts. We're still getting along, Cam.
Still getting along, man.
Good vibes everywhere. 3-0.
Always good vibes, man. I mean, this Bulls team is playing great. And shout out to our producer, 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗹, because this space is his baby. So
absolutely.
Shout out to 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗹 for doing his thing. But speaking of those good vibes, man, as you mentioned, 3-0 with this Bulls team. We were here last night, obviously, covering that game against the Atlanta Hawks and them getting that win 128-123. And you just get those goosebumps from this team and what we saw last night and how they won. And really how they've won their 3 games is that they're doing it on the defensive end. We'll get into the offense, of course, with them doing it with multiple guys in double-digit points. But what's been so impressive to you, 𝗚𝗏𝗄𝐶, about how this team has gelled so quickly so early in the season?
I think just that they're winning different ways. I mean, we saw them get off to that great start in Detroit, and then obviously Detroit pulled back even, and then they pulled away in the fourth. And then last night they get off to that bad start, but they pulled away in the fourth again. They're making big plays down the stretch. They're obviously getting huge contributions from their depth, which we knew was going to be a strong point. And then to win on the road. I mean, this, we're taping this before the Sacramento game, but there's just lots to like. 3-0, league-leading defensive rating, tied with 𝗚𝗏𝗄𝐶. The things they talked about in training camp, they're going out and doing. They're being more physical. They're getting into the ball more. They're using their depth. They're playing fast. So we don't want to overstate this start, but I don't think any of us had them going 3-0 to start the season. So they deserve all the credit.
And that is valid, man, because you'd be hard-pressed to find people out there that say, yes, the Bulls will be 3-0 after the first 3 games, knowing the opponents that they went up against. And these are 3 teams that have those aspirations of Eastern Conference Finals, possibly even NBA Finals, a little bit with Detroit. I'll throw them a little weight there, too, just coming into the season on paper of what they had and also how they finished last year. So it's all 3 impressive wins. I think the biggest thing for me is that they're doing it against these teams at full strength, right? When you look at the Detroit Pistons to start the season, Cade Cunningham available with the exception of Jaden Ivey, and you can throw Jalen Suggs into that when you think about the Orlando game last Saturday. But even coming into last night's game, there was a question about Jalen Johnson and Zach LaVine and would Porzingis play. Some of these guys were questionable, but the final moments they were available and in the starting lineup. So now you're like, all right, this team is going to get really tested against a long front line that's athletic, that can get up and down. How will the Bulls respond? And you mentioned this, got off to a slow start. I mean, they were 5 for 23 from 3 in the first half. Third quarter, they just flipped the script, went 7 of 10 for 3, and 𝗦𝗏𝗄𝐶 Okoro got it going in the third quarter by knocking down a 3. I mean, he finally cracked the seal for him scoring points to the Bulls uniform. He finished with 10 last night. So it's the ways that they're winning and just how they're able to weather the storm, stay the course, and find a way to win at the end.
You mentioned the other teams being at full strength mostly and the Bulls not. I mean, I'm getting all these questions like what's going to happen when Kobe and Zach Collins come back, And look, to me, it's a blessing. It's like they're playing this well without 2 of their main guys. You incorporate them, and you're just going to be even deeper. So, I don't want to get too 𝗚𝗏𝗄𝐶 here, but one thing you keep hearing from these players and coaches is how close this team is, and there's going to be a huge element of sacrifice. I mean, Tre Jones is starting right now. Is he going to be starting when Kobe White gets to full strength? I don't see it. Ayo Dosunmu was closing games and hitting big shots in the fourth quarter. Is he always going to be closing games? I don't see it. But yet, these guys know that they're cheering for each other because of the camaraderie they've built off the court. And look, everything's peaches and cream when you're 3-0, right? There's going to be adversity. Every NBA season, every professional sports season has its share of adversity. I see this team being able to weather those adverse times because of how close they are and how good the chemistry is.
Yeah, you have the closeness, the chemistry, you have the depth as well. And we heard that from 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗶 𝗚𝗏𝗄𝗏 when we have this team wanting to be deeper and kind of hit you with waves. And when you think of them trying to raise their defensive profile, you see it, right? When certain guys are in on the court, whether it's off the bench or just in Billy's rotation, they're really giving it their all because they know that they have a certain amount of time out.
Exactly.
Right? And you got to earn those minutes, right? And Billy's not going to give entitlement minutes. We go back to last year and him saying that more specifically when it came to Modest. But these guys coming off the bench in this rotation, understand their role, they accept their role, and they know that, all right, if I'm going to get on this court and play a significant amount of minutes or a decent amount of minutes, I have to perform on the defensive end. And that's one of the things, again, that's eye-opening for me of how they've played, how they've gotten stops, and how they've worked together on a court at 5 players on the defensive end.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned, you know, you got to make the most of your minutes. I mean, the way that the coaching staff is asking them to play, not only pushing the pace offensively and making quick decisions in the half court, cutting hard in the half court, that takes a lot of energy on the offensive end. Now you add the increased defensive focus this year and the ask of them taking more charges, getting more deflections, being more physical on the ball, picking up full court. That expends a lot of energy. I mean, I only played one end of the basketball when I played, so I didn't have to worry about any energy on defense.
KC's like, you know, you 4 guys get it done. When you get the stop and rebound, just outlet it to me. I'm pulling up for 3.
If I cross half court, it's a bonus, man. But no, my point is, like, it's almost like you have to have shorter stints because of what the coaching staff is asking these guys to do. And I know that the team has bought into that style of play and leaned into their depth and leaned into using it as a weapon to wear other teams down.
And I can't overstate this when it comes to Billy Donovan. You talk about the buy-in from the players. I think it says a ton about Billy. And this is a guy that we know, we respect, and we understand his basketball mind is high level. And, of course, he's a Hall of Famer, right? So you're not getting that type of nod if you're just an average guy out there. But Billy getting the buy-in from the players and having them understand that we are best suited to win with you guys in these roles and really maximizing your time on the court. And at this level, it's not easy. High school, you can easily sell that. College, you can sell that to the most part, especially with NIL and stuff that's out there now. But the NBA level, with so much surrounding these guys in terms of, okay, should I look elsewhere? What is my role? I don't accept this role. You have to have these guys on one accord. And I really, again, I cannot overstate how important that is, especially to start the season.
Right.
Because you look across the NBA right now, KC, there are teams that, I'm not going to name anybody specifically, but players have already checked out just because they're not playing the roles that they thought they would have coming into the season. So, again, it says a ton about Billy and what he's been able to do with this group.
Well, let's run that up the chain of command. I mean, you also have to give the front office credit for getting high character guys in here.
Sure.
I mean, but to your point, I mean, I'm not dismissing your point because it's absolutely accurate. I think that's actually Billy's one of his main strengths as coach is getting buy-in. Yeah. He's known as a player's coach. He's direct with communication. I've said this before. He is the same personality every day. He is consistently upbeat, consistently positive, and consistently direct.
Yeah.
Players want honesty. They want directness. When you have a coach and a staff that treats you that way, there's respect flowing both ways. And Billy also has an open door policy. So credit to the front office for getting high character guys in here. Credit to Billy and his staff for coaching with the style that they do. And credit to the players for accepting that coaching. Yeah. Again, you know, if the Bulls go on a 3 or 4 game losing streak, this podcast is not as positive as it is right now. Right. But I do think that the point we're talking about is going to be consistent even in the adverse times. They're going to have buy-in. They're going to have no splintering. They're going to be able to weather the adverse times because there's adverse times coming. They're not going to go 82-0. Here's a news flash.
Not happening. Okay? Not happening, everybody.
But the last thing I would say is, you know, we haven't even mentioned the fact that this is more impressive given that you have, I think, 7 players in a contract year.
Yeah.
Where you can really go off the farm and, you know, kind of go your own way, you know?
I mean, we've seen that time and time again throughout this league's history of these guys in contract years that just go rogue and really go hero ball, ISO ball because they're trying to get paid. And you understand it to a certain degree, but when it comes to the team concept and we're talking about professional sports, again, with the contracts and the money that's out there, you still have to have guys on the same plan, on the same kind of overall goal that the team wants to have, and that's to win and to raise the profile in the NBA. So again, it's not an easy task, and Billy Donovan is a guy that's the right job for this team to make it work, and so it's impressive.
Yeah. We've been talking kind of generally. Let's get into some players. I think we got to start with Ayo Dosunmu because you had a chance to sit down with him in the preseason and have a lengthy interview with him. Just the way he's approached this season. Yeah. You know, we've talked about it before, but he has just a relentless quality to him where, you can say this is going to be your role, and he's like, "No, fam, I'm gonna carve out more. Like I'm not buying into that role." He just has a relentlessness to him, and his ability to close games, particularly in Orlando and against the Hawks, to hit those big shots. Yeah. I talked to him yesterday morning about his 3-point shooting. It did not sit well with him last year. Shot 33% last season from 3, 40% the year before. You know, everyone talks about his ability to get downhill. He put a lot of time in once he got healthy from that shoulder surgery on that 3-point shot. He's not going to obviously hit those shots all the time, but the way he did in 2 of the first 3 games is notable.
I mean, you go back to the Orlando game Saturday night and what he was able to shoot from 3. It was 3 or 4. And then go back to last night in this win against the Atlanta Hawks and how he really uplifted the spirits of this team, because there was a point where you start to see, okay, Atlanta took over, looked like they were seemingly in control, and you're like, all right, well, it's going to be a tough loss for the Bulls. They competed. We'll just try and take this L. But Ayo is a guy that never says die. We understand this. And he just makes big plays. And that's just been Ayo from the time that I've seen him at Westinghouse. Like, he just understands the moment and how to step up in those moments. Now, I'm dating myself.
I know, you go to the Westinghouse days,
go to the Westinghouse days,
Forget Morgan Park. You go to the Westinghouse days, man.
When he was rocking the headband, man. So that's how far I'll go back with Ayo and his family. But sitting down with him during media day, he's one of those players and one of those personalities where he internalizes a lot. And he does it where he's not only taking into account everything that's said about him from outside, but he holds himself to a higher standard. And you mentioned the 3-point percentage and how it dipped last year to 33%. And now you look at his 3-point percentage through small sample size of 3 games, but over 50% is what he's shooting from 3. And so you have the work that he put in the offseason, especially coming off of shoulder surgery, which cut a season short last year to 46 games. So he understood not only the personal pressure and expectations that he had for himself, but to a certain level and degree, the outside pressure that was there for him, but doesn't feed into that. He knew that he was ready. We saw it in preseason, so that should have been an indication for fans out there that are like, well, where did this come from? Well, you weren't watching Bulls basketball in the preseason because Ayo was ready to play. So what we're seeing from him is a guy that accepts his role, but knows that he can do more.
Yeah, I mean, he looks at himself as a starter, and that's really kind of a philosophy that's kind of permeating throughout the bench. You've got guys in Kevin Huerter, Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu. They've all been starters, regular starters at one point in their career, and they bring that starter's mentality to their reserve minutes. But in terms of Ayo, I mean, I would not have predicted him closing games, early in the season, no matter how well he played in the preseason. But again, give Billy Donovan some credit. He's talked about how he's right. Sometimes he's just kind of making it up. And there was actually a moment in Orlando that was pretty significant where Billy went to Josh to have him check back in. And Josh Giddey's like, no, this unit's rolling. And that, again, speaks to that sacrifice that they've talked about. And then Ayo hit 3 threes in the fourth. So that just is, again, that chemistry and closeness that this team has. And I give Ayo credit for, taking advantage of his opportunities.
And it says we continue to talk about the chemistry and just how this team is together, but people really have to understand how big that is for Josh to say, no, this unit is rolling, keep them out there. For a guy coming off signing a 4-year, $100 million deal that could easily say, okay, Billy, this is my team. Let me go back in and get things going. Josh didn't say that. Nope. And I think it goes back to just his selflessness, but also his idea in his mind as a point guard of that he understands ebbs and flows of games. And when a team has a rolling or a certain unit has it rolling, let them ride it out.
Yeah.
If it gets a little dicey and the wheels start to fall off, okay, I understand. I'll go back in. But he wanted to see the success of those guys out there and for them to bring it back up and really get them back in the game. Now, again, it just says a lot with this group of how they're able to lean on each other and trust one another in those adverse times.
Yeah, another guy I think we need to talk about individually is Nikola Vucevic, because reports of his demise have been greatly over-exaggerated. And I was leading that charge in the preseason where Vooch was kind of sleepwalking his way through it, man.
We were curious about, like, all right, is Vooch okay?
Yeah,
like, is everything all right, Vooch?
He's okay.
Yes, right.
I mean, he almost had a 20-20 triple-double.
Man.
And that defensive play at the end was huge. That deflection,
steal, and then pitching into head to Kevin Huerter for the layup.
So shout out to Vooch. He had some fun with us last night post game. Again, we're taping this the morning of the after the Hawks victory, and he had some fun with us last night. And he's a very sarcastic, dry humor kind of guy. He said some of those preseason questions were a little bit out of line, because we were asking about his age and turning 35 and year 15, and he's having fun with it. But look, forget what he's doing on the court. Off the court, he set such a good example with his preparation, his ability to take care of his body. The young players love him. Yeah. He sets a good example for the organization. And I know he's been a polarizing player for fans throughout his tenure here. Mm-hmm. What I see is a very skilled basketball player.
No doubt, and has been consistent with those skills 100%. Too. So Billy said something post-game that Kendall and I raised our eyebrows at in a good way with this. But Billy mentioned, and 𝗻•, you're obviously in the room, but he mentioned that, a lot of times when they're on the road and some of these trips that the one thing that he tries to do when they get into the team's hotel is to get out to the fitness center and the workout area and get a workout in. And when he gets there, who's in there lifting weights? It's Vooch. Cool. Yeah. So like that insight kind of pulling back the curtain on the work that these players put in, but also a guy in his 15th season, just fresh off of turning 35 last Friday, still putting the work in, still hungry, still motivated to get himself better so that the overall team is great. You got to tip your cap to Vooch. And so for people saying, okay, well, he's 35, Vooch is looking at you like, I just had 17 points, 17 rebounds last night.
And
35 where? 9 assists too. So flirting with that triple-double. So it's like 35 where? And not over here. I'm still a young dude in my mind. And also my numbers prove it of what my production can be and what really my impact is.
And let's not forget that opening victory over Detroit. I mean, because what was so impressive to me about that victory was he scored inside early.
Yeah.
Then he started hitting trail threes as the trail big. And then what did he do late? He went back to the pocket, two-man game, that little floater in the lane. So he scored like multiple different ways against Detroit. He's just had a great start to the season, and all credit goes to him for navigating his offseason commitment to his national team and then taking care of his body and being ready to start the season at the level that he has. After sleepwalking his way through the preseason. I'm not going to let him sleep on that.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to keep reminding him of that because he's going to keep giving me a hard time about it. So.
Make sure you tap into that Vooch versus 𝗻•thing throughout the season. That's going to be fun. But no, speaking of guys that have hit the ground running this season and started off great, we got to talk about Tre Young. Oh, Tre Young. Oh, I knew I was going to do it at some point. I didn't do it yet. I didn't do it yesterday. I'm glad I didn't do it yesterday on Bulls Countdown Live, but I knew at some point I was going to say Tre Young when trying to mention Tre Jones.
I did it 3 times last season. I have not done it yet this season, but it's remarkable we didn't do it last night.
Look, it's
Tre Jones versus Tre Young. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was a matchup there, but Tre Jones has been phenomenal. And I do not use that word and that adjective lightly. He has been phenomenal. First player since Michael Jordan to have at least 10 steals in the first 3 games
first Chicago.
First Bull, excuse me. It's impressive. It's a guy at 6 foot coming off the bench, a starter, of course. He can really morph into whatever you need him to be in that point guard role. But just looking at his numbers last night, again, he's 6 feet, but Tre Jones, 14 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 steals. You have someone that, similar to Ayo mindset-wise, I don't care if I start. I don't care if I come off the bench.
Right.
I know when I'm on the court, I'm making an impact.
Yeah, and it's been very clear that Billy Donovan is seeking all lineups with 2 ball handlers, and whether that's Josh and Tre, Tre and Ayo, Josh and Ayo, he's got 2 main ball handlers out there. It's also clear the trust factor that Billy Donovan has with Tre Jones. He loves him some Tre Jones. And why not? I mean, he's a true point guard. He takes care of the basketball. He makes great reads. He's very crafty getting to the rim. He had a pass in Orlando where he drove late, and the defense, Desmond Bane went down to hedge on somebody, and he kicked it out all the way across court to the wing for Ayo for one of his fourth quarter threes. That was such a great read, and the pass through traffic was so impressive. So I'm with you, man. I mean, there's a lot of good starts to the season, but I think we've hit the 3 big ones: Ayo Dosunmu, Tre Jones. Don't call him Tre Young.
Don't do it.
And Nikola Vucevic.
And just one more point on Tre Jones in Orlando. You talk about the offensive end of how he was able to find Ayo with that cross-court pass for 3. Defensively, there was a moment where he was on Paolo Banchero fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And it was crunch time. And on the backside of Banchero, Orlando's getting ready to feed the post, and at the final second while the ball was in flight, Jones worked his way around into the front of 𝗵𝗹 𝗟𝗶𝗪 to get the steal.
Yeah.
And like it's those little things that you look at it and you're like, these are what you build on and what you piece together to seal wins and seal defensive stops. So he's the dude that you're just like, yes, I'm glad he's on our team. And also San Antonio, thank you. We appreciate it.
I mean, you know, we're taping this the day before Zach gets here. I mean, I've talked to all three of those guys, and unfortunately Zach Collins is hurt right now, but like it's rare when you see a trade and have all three players in Kevin Huerter, Tre Jones, and Zach Collins assimilate themselves as seamlessly as those three players did. And all three players have talked about right when the trade happened, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to fit with that team. The style of play, the usage, all three players saw it as a huge opportunity. But we saw it last season, and unfortunately, again, Zach got hurt, but we saw it from him in the preseason, and you're seeing Kevin and Trey extend that into the regular season where they left off last season. So great. It's a trade that's worked out very well, I know, for both franchises because Zach's scoring like Zach scores. He's had 3 30-point games as we tape this, shooting over 53%. That's who Zach is, and the Bulls are happy with the return they got.
Yeah, one more note on player-wise. I mean, you talked about the guys out there for this team that have really been a force for this group in their roles, but also it was good to see Modest bounce back after what we saw in Orlando, fouled out, just never got into a rhythm, but 16 points last night, and, of course, that dunk against Jalen Johnson, like the reverse, is just Modest has a couple of highlights already that are already in top 10 of the young NBA season.
Verse was nice. I like the three in the fourth quarter more. That was a big three. He stepped up and shot it with confidence. And, you know, he hasn't had the same impact in games, definitely not in game 2, in game 3 as he did in the first game.
Yeah.
But this is part of the process for him. It's learning situation. And that three in the fourth was very impressive to me because it was a huge shot at a huge time. And he shot it with confidence.
And he wants to be out there on the floor despite if he's playing well or not. He understands that he still has more to give, and that's another part of Modest mentally, which I really love, is that he does not minimize himself in these moments. He wants the basketball. He wants to step up and make the big shot or the big play or help out defensively to get things going for this Bulls team that are 3-0.
Just like we predicted.
Yes. One of 4 NBA teams undefeated in the NBA right now. Oklahoma City, San Antonio, the Bulls, and the Philadelphia 76ers. They're going to try to go to 4-0. They face off against the Sacramento Kings tomorrow. A couple of former Bulls on that roster.
We know a couple of those guys.
DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, those names should sound familiar, but it's going to be fun to see those guys back in the building tomorrow night.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know when you will be listening to this or watching this, but I just want to say one thing about Zach LaVine. I thought I asked Nikola Vucevic about his return. You know, coming to the United Center for the first time since the trade, and if you haven't checked it out, check my Twitter feed, or I'm sure it'll be in some content. You'll see Vooch was very eloquent about the way he thinks Zach should be received. I know Zach was a polarizing player for some fans. I just want to say from my perspective, I've rarely dealt with someone as professional, both on and off the court. I mean, he was a high-profile player, so he had some times where he was in the spotlight or the glare and maybe didn't handle it perfectly, but like media-wise, he was always accountable. I know he cared about winning. I know it really frustrated him that he wasn't able to win. 2-time All-Star. I mean, I thought Zach's tenure here, I think it should be acknowledged as he comes back to the United Center, where I know there'll be a video tribute. I think we should take a moment to recognize what he did for this organization.
Yeah.
He cared, and it didn't work out for him, and now he's moved on. But great run here, and I'm looking forward to seeing him personally.
I just love how Zach changed his profile from being a guy that was labeled as a dunker, obviously, what he was able to do through the dunk contest and some of the classic dunk contests that we've seen in NBA history, but understood that he wanted to be more than that, and he was. Right? Yeah. You mentioned about him being an all-star.
One of the most efficient scorers.
Yes, and was able to, and we saw it last year, be a more mature scorer as well, of how he was picking his shots and efficiency of how he was knocking things down. And to add to your point of just the experiences of interviewing him, speaking with him, super professional. And I've had the same experiences with Zach that you've had at 𝗻•C in terms of how he would go into detail with his answer, would spend time with everyone to make sure that everyone got what they needed. So as you mentioned, and as Bulls fans should, and people in the United States should, acknowledge him when he comes back, and that video tribute is played for him with the Sacramento Kings. Just, Zach, not personal, but Bulls are trying to go to 4-0, man. So, but it's going to be a good game. And also tomorrow we'll be in the building for the Sacramento Kings.
Another total pro.
Yeah, for sure. So, and we know the Kings are going to try and come with a little something after that game against the Lakers where Austin Reeves had 51 points. So it's going to be another good one inside the United Center. So make sure you tap in on Chicago Sports Network. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the By the Horn podcast from our great podcast studio. Casey and I are going to try and do a lot more of these throughout the season because it hits different when you're doing it in the studio as opposed to remote. I mean, the comforts of home are great.
Don't say that too loud. Edgar might hear it. But
oh, yeah, that's true. So he's going to run it back for me because he's like, Cam, I got receipts, man, if you're saying that.
Pretty sweet, though, I got to admit.
No, it is nice. It is nice. So we'll see everybody soon. Make sure you keep it locked on CHSN for all your Bulls coverage and content.